The economic outlook now for 2019, not so impressive.
He says conditions will likely be tougher before they get better.
We've got to be innovative, and we must combine that with our willingness to be as creative as possible to address this crisis, because we are essentially in a deep and serious crisis.
We seem to be due for a global depression just because of the debt build-up. If you add up all of the debts in the world, it's roughly $150 trillion. You'd think it has to balance out somehow, that surely some countries are lending to other countries. But no, it's money everyone owes to the banks and their investors. The problem is, this is the world. We're not about to get bailed out by aliens. Up until now, the way banks have been lending more and more money has pushed up prices of assets like houses and stocks. This was possible because in a growing economy, debts could be paid back. But when debts finally build to an unmanageable point, as they did before the Great Depression, asset prices can and do go down. Because banks are overextended, they lend less, and because individuals, businesses and countries are also overextended, defaults become more frequent. Both defaults and reduced lending decrease the amount of money in the economy, which means less money chasing the same goods and assets. This leads to a fall in asset prices, called deflation, and means that house prices will eventually go back down to what's reasonable and affordable. So if you have a mortgage, beware that you could end up with more debt than your house is worth. This deflationary spiral also means high unemployment, high prices for necessities and hard times. That's what happened during the Great Depression, and it's what's going on now. Only this time around, the depression will be even more severe because we've never lived in such a globalised world before. And it will be a permanent decline because of peak oil. The global financial crisis was only the beginning. Since then, much of the world's middle class have been struggling just to keep up with their food, fuel, bills and mortgage or rent payments. And things can only get worse. So what can we do? In a deflationary scenario, the money from bailouts and money printing mostly goes straight into paying down debts, which is why our economies have only barely recovered since 2008. Mostly, governments, big business and the media are avoiding these issues and trying to keep the status quo alive a little bit longer, which will only end up making the crunch harder in the long run. As things get worse, governments are likely to prioritise saving themselves, for example by raising taxes and cutting spending, rather than helping us out. There isn't actually any positive strategy they could use to save us that's also in keeping with their own interests and systems. Otherwise they would have done it by now. This complex system has grown to its limit and it's now in decline, slowly dismantling itself piece by piece, delayed only slightly along the way by government intervention. Fortunately, I've learnt it's going to be somewhat okay that our systems just dismantle themselves, because there are millions of people around the world busy at work on much better systems we can replace them with. Local currencies that are more equitable and stable are being designed and tested around the world. Transition town groups are building community and leading preparatory efforts to relocalise. Distributed manufacturing is about producing what we need close to home with nifty technologies like 3D printers. There are even groups working on peer-to-peer versions of the internet that we can get up quickly if the internet happens to go down. I just wanted to point out this small set of examples because every time I worry about some particular challenge, I look it up and there's a group of people who've set themselves to figuring out a positive and feasible way through it. Working together, we can create a better world, here and now. Really, my hope is that as the system continues to fall apart, those of us who find out what's going on, prepare ourselves and start whatever local projects and enterprises to prepare our communities that we can. so that as conditions worsen, we can build community and share ways of growing food and simple sustainable technologies and plenty more that people will be very interested in during a time of great financial hardship. The fact that this time round some of us are aware of what's going on and are preparing for the crash, as well as the degree of free communication the internet affords us, are the main things we have going for us. We all have basic human needs for security and safety, and if we're lucky, for happiness and fulfillment as well. This is happening to all of us, and we all have the ability to make choices as to how we handle the future. So I'm asking you, please, even if this seems outside the realm of possibility, at least do some research, check it out for yourself. You can decide what kind of future you want and start taking steps to make it happen. The more of us who start now, the more likely this transition is to be peaceful and just, and perhaps even exciting and promising.